"May I have your leftovers, sir?" When the millionaire looked into her eyes, something miraculous happened. Under the dim glow of chandeliers shaped like frozen stars, the air inside Le Pavon, the city's most exclusive restaurant, hummed with wealth. Every polished surface whispered status. Every candlelit table was a quiet kingdom of power and restraint. At the farthest corner, shielded by orchids and shadow, sat John Maxwell, 48, tech mogul, billionaire, widower. His Armani suit fit like a second skin, and his platinum watch winked with quiet arrogance. Yet none of it masked the hollow carved in his chest. He stared blankly at the untouched filet mignon before him, its aroma rich, irrelevant. Across from him, the empty chair screamed louder than any voice in the room. He tightened his grip around. A Bordeaux glass, the wine swirling like a ghost of better years. 10 years had passed since the crash, since the twisted metal, the broken glass, and the silence that swallowed Lillian and little Caleb. In their absence, John had built walls of silence, of routine, of wealth. He lifted the glass to his lips. Then a voice shattered the silence beside him. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" He froze. Slowly he turned. A girl, no older than 19, stood beside his table. Blonde hair tucked in a messy bun, strands falling in curls like they'd given up trying. Her coat was threadbare, clinging to her like a last defense against the early autumn chill. In her arms, a baby, maybe 8 months old, wrapped in a faded blanket. The infant's wide, luminous eyes were fixed not on John, but on the mound of mashed potatoes and slices of meat steaming on the untouched plate. The girl hadn't spoken, loudly, but the sound cut through the room like a violin string snapping. Around them, forks froze midair. Conversations faltered into silence. A waiter began to step forward, already frowning. But John raised a single hand, small, quiet, absolute. He studied her. She didn't look away. There was no shame in her face, no plea, no pity, only exhaustion. And behind that, something fierce, something almost sacred. A will not for herself, but for the life she clutched to her chest. She wasn't begging. She wasn't stealing. She was surviving. John's throat tightened. The candle between them flickered. And in that flicker, something cracked. Not an epiphany. Not yet. But a shift. A stir. He didn't know it then, but that moment, that one question, would begin to dismantle the walls he'd spent a decade building and lead him to a redemption he never sought, through a love he never expected. He stared, frozen. The rest of the restaurant blurred, fading into soft, irrelevant shapes. Her coat barely fit, sleeves riding too short. Her shoes, if they could still be called that, were canvas sneakers, frayed, soaked, the soles nearly gone. But it wasn't her clothes that caught his breath. It was her eyes. They didn't plead. They didn't flinch. They held him with dignity, with sorrow, with a courage that only comes from protecting someone too small to defend themselves. She was not asking for herself. She was asking for her child. John hesitated a beat longer, then slowly pushed the plate toward her. "Take it," he said, almost to himself. She didn't lunge, didn't tear at the food like someone starving. Instead, she reached into her satchel and retrieved a small square of cloth, clean though fraying at the edges. With quiet reverence, she wrapped the mashed potatoes and slices of meat, folding the corners like she was preserving treasure, not scraps. Then, kneeling beside the chair, she cradled the baby closer and pulled a plastic spoon from her coat pocket. John watched unmoving as she scooped a modest bite, blew gently on it, and fed the child. The baby's lips parted, his tiny tongue reaching. He cooed, a soft, delighted sound that cut through John sharper than any scream. His round cheeks lifted. A smile bloomed across his face, like a sunrise after 10 winters. John's fingers curled against the table. It was the kind of smile he hadn't seen since. He looked away. Just a second. just to blink the mist from his eyes. But the child cooed again, and John's gaze snapped back. She kept feeding him, slowly, carefully, as if each spoonful carried more than food, as if it carried hope. She never once looked up, never glanced around to see who watched or judged or whispered. She was there for one reason, to feed her son. John's heart twisted, slow and deep. Not pity, not charity, something older, truer, the realization that he was witnessing something holy, a kind of love that couldn't be bought, that couldn't be replaced. When the baby seemed full, the girl tucked the bundle into her satchel, adjusted the blanket and stood. She glanced once at John. Not a thank you, a nod, a quiet acknowledgement of something past between them, unspoken. Then she turned and walked away, out of Le Pavon and into the cool night beyond the glass. John sat there, unmoving. The candle flickered on, the wine untouched, the chair across from him still empty. Before he could think, before he could argue with himself, he rose, not in a rush, not with drama, just purpose. He placed his napkin on the table, nodded at the stunned waiter, and followed her out. He didn't know why, only that he had to. He moved through the doors, into the dark, a few steps behind, far enough not to startle, close enough not to lose her. She moved fast, slipping through the narrow veins of the city, the baby a warm shield against the cold. She turned into a side alley, the neon glow thinning. At the end, a crumbling parking lot, boxed in by brick. She approached a navy sedan, dented, fogged, its peeling paint flaking like old skin. She opened the back door, crawled inside, laid the baby down on a thin blanket stretched across the seat, whispered to him. Then softly she sang, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." John lingered in the shadows, listening, not knowing what would come next, only that something had already begun. In the shadows, John watched, transfixed. The baby's tiny hand clutched Emily's collar, his eyelids fluttering as the lullaby wrapped around him like a warm quilt. The setting was bleak, but the love was undeniable. John stepped forward. Something must have alerted her. She turned, startled. Their eyes met. "I'm sorry," he said, hands raised in peace. "I just wanted to see if you were okay." "You followed me," she said, wary but calm. "Yes," he admitted. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She just stood there, measuring the man in the tailored coat. "I saw how you fed your son," John said quietly. "I've never seen anything like that. I needed to understand." She hesitated, then softly. "His name is Noah. I'm Emily." "Noah," John repeated. 8 months, she nodded. "He loves mashed potatoes." John's voice dropped. "So did my son." Emily blinked. Something shifted in her expression. She didn't ask questions. She didn't pry. She only listened, with the rare, steady stillness of someone who had known grief. "I was studying to be a nurse," she said. "Then I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My parents disowned me. I've been on my own ever since." Her voice held no bitterness, just fact. "We've lived in this car for 2 months. I clean houses, wait tables, whatever I can." John looked at the dented vehicle behind her, the thin blanket inside, the neatly folded baby clothes stacked in the corner like treasure. "I can help," he said. "A hotel, food, whatever you need." She raised a hand. "No, I'm not asking for money." He was taken aback. "Then what do you want?" Emily glanced at her baby. "Just 1 day. 1 day where he's warm, full, and safe. That's all." The Words hit John harder than any demand ever could. Above them, the streetlight flickered, casting an amber hue across her face. And in that glow, John saw something he hadn't expected. Her eyes, different from his late wife's, yet close enough to crack something in him. The way Emily clutched Noah, the way she stood tall, with nothing but love as armor. It stirred something in him, something long buried with the people he'd lost. He stepped back, suddenly unsteady. "Thank you," he said. Emily's brow furrowed. "For what?" "For reminding me I still have a heart." She didn't respond. She simply held Noah tighter and resumed the lullaby. John stood there a while longer, the song threading through the night like a lifeline. She didn't smile, but she didn't close the door either. And somehow, that was everything. From that night on, John couldn't shake the image of her. The girl with broken shoes, and the baby with the mashed potato smile. No matter how many board meetings he attended or emails he skimmed, their faces lingered in his mind like ghosts. Quiet, persistent reminders that, in the same city where people drank $8,000 wine, a mother and her child were surviving on little more than love and resilience. He didn't speak to her again. At least, not at first. Instead, he acted, quietly, precisely, the way he had built his empire. He found the car again, parked behind an abandoned church lot. Without approaching or intruding, he left packages near the vehicle at dawn. A canister of baby formula, a pack of diapers, a thermos of homemade soup still warm to the touch. He arranged for a pediatrician to make a discreet visit under the guise of a church outreach program. Emily didn't ask who sent the doctor, but after the visit she held Noah a little longer than usual and whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular. At first, Emily was skeptical. She had learned to expect disappointment, not miracles. But these gestures arrived with no notes, no expectations. No one asked her to smile. No one asked her to be grateful. It was simply there, steady, gentle, real. And little by little, suspicion gave way to something more dangerous. Hope. Then, as October's chill deepened, disaster struck. Noah had been cranky all day, refusing to eat. By nightfall, he was burning with fever. Emily tried everything. Cool cloths, lullabies, rocking him gently in the back seat. But his cries turned sharp and urgent, his breathing shallow and fast. She rushed to the nearest hospital. At the front desk, the woman barely looked up. "He's burning up," Emily said. "He's not responding." "Do you have insurance?" the woman asked. Emily hesitated, then said no. "We're at full capacity," the woman replied curtly. "You'll have to wait or go elsewhere." Emily's voice broke. "Please, he's just a baby. He has a 104 fever." "I'm sorry," the woman said. "Without proper intake, we can't—" Emily stepped outside into the freezing air, Noah limp against her chest. He'd gone quiet, terrifyingly quiet. She clutched him tighter, her body trembling with cold and panic. Then, with nothing left to lose, she pulled out her phone and typed just 2 words, "Help us." She didn't know if he would come. She didn't know why she trusted that he might. But 6 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness. John's black SUV screeched to a halt. He was out before the engine stopped, coat flaring in the wind, eyes wild. He didn't ask questions. He just held out his arms. Emily handed Noah to him, and for the first time the baby didn't resist. His tiny hand curled around John's finger, weak but deliberate, as if he recognized something safe. John didn't hesitate. He stormed back into the hospital. "I want a doctor now," he said, voice sharp as glass. "This child has a critical fever. I will cover every cent. But if you let one more minute pass, I'll buy this hospital and fire every last one of you." They took Noah immediately. Emily sank into a hallway chair, shivering. John sat beside her. He said nothing. When the nurse returned, her words were soft and steady. Noah was stable, resting. They'd monitor him overnight. Emily exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You came," she whispered. John nodded. "Of course I did." Tears spilled over. She leaned into him, her body shaking. Relief, grief, something in between. Her head rested against his shoulder, and John, without a word, wrapped his arms around her. He didn't ask her to be calm. He didn't ask her to be strong. He just held her. It was the first time Emily had let herself fall apart since becoming a mother. And for John, it was the first time in 10 years that holding someone didn't feel like betrayal. They didn't speak of love. They didn't define anything. But something irreversible shifted in that quiet hospital hallway, in the heartbeat of a man who'd sworn never to care again, and in the breath of a girl who had only ever known how to survive. Not because he rescued her, but because, for the first time, she didn't have to be strong alone. Every swipe brought more venom, each headline, another bruise. Emily's chest tightened, her hands trembling as she turned off the screen, terrified the light alone might somehow poison Noah too. He stirred in his crib, and she crossed the room, laying a soft hand on his chest. Her touch calmed him. Then she sat back on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor until sunrise. When John walked in, he noticed it instantly. Something had shifted. Emily's posture was guarded, her expression distant. "I can't do this," she said, barely above a whisper. "I don't want my son growing up under scandal. I don't want him seeing lies one day and wondering if they're true." John sat beside her, voice quiet. "You didn't do anything wrong, neither did Noah." She shook her head. "People don't care. They've already decided who I am." John's voice strengthened. "Then let me tell them the truth." That afternoon, he called his publicist. No PR spin, no rehearsed statement. He wanted one thing: honesty. The following night, he went live on national television. The studio was bare. Just a chair, soft lighting, and a single camera. The interviewer asked no loaded questions, just opened the space. John began not with Emily, but with Lillian and Caleb, the family he'd lost, the car crash, the silence that followed, the way grief hollowed him out. "I stopped living the day they died," he confessed. Then he spoke of Emily. She wasn't looking for charity. She wasn't even looking for help. She just wanted to feed her son. And in doing that, she woke something in me I thought I'd buried for good. His voice cracked. "She didn't take anything from me. She gave me something no one else could, a reason to care again." He looked straight into the camera. "Emily is not a headline. She is a mother. Noah is not a prop. He is a beautiful, brilliant child. I didn't save them. They saved me." The interview was raw, honest, unfiltered, and it worked. By morning, the tide had turned. Online narratives shifted. Mothers shared their own stories of single parenthood, of poverty, of shame and survival. Nurses spoke up about girls like Emily who fell through the cracks. Donations flowed into shelters. A woman in Kansas started a fund for young mothers trying to get back on their feet. Emily didn't speak to the press, but the next morning she showed up at John's door, Noah bundled tightly against the cold. She didn't knock. He opened the door before she could. Her eyes were tired but steady. "I'm not leaving," she said. "If you still want us, we're here." John didn't speak. He just stepped aside and let them in, and for the first time in years, something inside him settled. A door, once bolted by grief, creaked open. Not just to his home, but to his heart. He found them an apartment, not lavish, but warm and sunlit, with soft gray walls and windows that caught the morning light. Emily moved in with 2 duffel bags, a baby carrier, and the wary quiet of someone unused to safe places. But within a week, the space felt lived in. Noah's drawings fluttered on the fridge. Tiny socks dried over the heater. The air carried the scent of baby lotion and lullabies. They never defined what they were to each other. Not at first. No declarations, no timelines, just presence. John visited every morning, at first with excuses. Diapers, groceries, small errands. But soon, it became a rhythm. He'd knock, let himself in, and Noah would light up, bouncing in his crib at the sound. Emily would be in the kitchen, hair in that same loose knot, coffee already brewing. John learned how to hold a bottle just right, how to warm milk without scalding it, how to change a diaper with growing ease. He learned Noah's cries, what meant hunger, what meant frustration. One afternoon as he rocked the baby to sleep, Noah's small hand clenched his shirt. John didn't want to leave. Emily saw it too. The way John stayed longer each time, how he listened to Noah's babble like it was music. He didn't try to rescue her, didn't try to define her. He simply showed up every day, steady and open, and that, more than anything, began to heal her. The love that grew between them wasn't the kind of love that burns hot and fast. It was the slow kind, the real kind, built from small mornings and tired evenings, shared burdens, unspoken understanding one evening. After Noah finally drifted to sleep, they sat together on the balcony under a blanket. The city shimmered below, but neither of them looked down. John's voice was low. When I lost Lillian and Caleb, I thought the part of me that wanted to belong died with them. Emily looked at him, her eyes bright in the moonlight. You didn't lose it, she whispered. It just waited. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The silence between them was a promise, deep, quiet, unshakable. And for the first time in years, John smiled. Not the smile he gave investors or cameras, but one full of light, full of something returned. Emily smiled too, one just for him, full and rare. They weren't yet a couple. They weren't yet a family, in name. But they were something truer. 2 people broken by loss who had found, in each other, the beginning of home. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope, slipped beneath the apartment door like a ghost from the past. Emily stared at it for a long time before opening it. The handwriting was tight, familiar. Her mother's. Only a few lines. No dramatic apologies. Just, if there's still a chance to know my grandson, I would like to try. Emily sat at the kitchen table for over an hour, the letter gently crumpled in her hands as Noah played nearby. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. But the silence pressed in like a storm cloud. When John arrived that evening, he found her still there. She wrote, Emily said, eyes not lifting. He read the letter, then quietly sat beside her. What are you thinking? He asked. I don't know, she said. It's been almost 2 years. They told me I wasn't their daughter anymore. John nodded. You don't owe them anything. Emily turned to him. But Noah, doesn't he deserve to know? Even if it's messy? John met her gaze. Then let him choose. Don't make that decision for him. Give him the option you never had. 3 days later, they drove to the town Emily once called home. A place of green hills, narrow roads, and long memories. Her parents' house stood at the end of a gravel path. The porch swing still creaked in the wind. Emily stood for a long moment at the base of the steps, Noah on her hip, his little fingers curled around her sweater. John stood slightly behind her, not pushing, just there. And Emily, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel alone. The door creaked open slowly. A woman stepped out, mid-50s, her features once sharp now softened by time and sorrow. Emily's mother. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, with a trembling breath, the woman stepped forward. Her eyes landed on Noah, then on Emily, and instantly filled with tears. "I wasn't strong," she said, her voice thin, cracking. "I was scared. Scared of what people would think. Scared of losing the version of you I thought I raised. And I lost you, anyway." Emily stood still, lips parting, her jaw set tight. Then came her father. He appeared quietly behind her mother, older than she remembered. His shoulders stooped, hands folded in front of him like a man unsure of his place. He looked at Noah the way someone might gaze upon something sacred. Noah, blissfully unaware, reached out a hand toward the man, curious, unburdened by history. And somehow, that innocent gesture shattered the silence. Her mother broke. She stepped forward, arms open, hesitant. "May I?" she asked, voice trembling. "May I hold him?" Emily hesitated. Then slowly, wordlessly, she handed Noah to her mother. The older woman cradled the boy as though she were trying to hold time itself. Her shoulders shook as she wept, whispering soft things into his hair while he blinked up at her, wide-eyed and content. John stood a few steps away, his chest tight. This wasn't his moment, but he bore witness to it, its gravity, its grace, and when Emily stepped into her mother's arms, embracing her for the first time in nearly 2 years, the porch itself seemed to breathe again. The past wasn't erased, but it had been softened. Forgiveness didn't arrive like a bolt of lightning. It crept in like dawn. That afternoon, 3 generations sat around the same kitchen table, where Emily once ate cereal before school. Her mother poured tea. Her father bounced Noah gently on his knee. And for the first time in years, laughter returned to that house. Across the room, Emily caught John's eye. She mouthed 2 simple words. "Thank you." He shook his head, smiling, gently. "No." He whispered under his breath, "Thank you for going home." 1 year later, the world hadn't changed, but their world had, in the ways that mattered. The noise was gone. The headlines had faded. What remained was something quieter and infinitely stronger. A life. It was a bright spring afternoon when they returned to the park, where it all began. A breeze moved through the trees, and the golden light painted the field in a soft, almost sacred glow. No floral arches, no photographers, just close friends. A linen cloth beneath a sprawling oak, and a simple wooden arch wrapped with ivy and ribbon. At the center of it all was a boy in a navy vest and bow tie. Noah, nearly 2 now, clutched a small velvet box with both hands as he wobbled across the grass toward John, who waited just a few feet away. Not in a designer suit, but a soft gray blazer Emily once said made him look almost human. His hair was longer now, silver strands streaking through it, and his eyes, once shadowed with grief, now held something brighter than wealth. Hope. John knelt down as Noah reached him, took the box gently, and smiled. Noah giggled and toddled back to Emily, who stood barefoot in the grass, her white dress rippling in the wind. She had never looked more radiant, not because of the sunlight behind her, but because of the fire in her eyes, a fire only found after surviving the dark. John stepped forward, dropped to one knee, and the world seemed to still. "You never asked for anything," he said, voice thick with emotion. You didn't beg. You didn't expect. You just showed up. On the worst night of your life, you gave me something I didn't know I'd lost. The feeling of being needed, of being alive. He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. Unflashy. Chosen not for price, but for how it would look on her hand as she held their son. You didn't take what was left of me, Emily, he whispered. You gave me everything I didn't know I was missing. A family, a reason, a future. A pause. His eyes shimmered. Will you marry me? Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes brimmed, tears forming before the first could fall. She nodded once, twice, then dropped to her knees, laughing through her tears. Yes, they held each other like puzzle pieces, long lost, finally found. The minister stepped forward. The ceremony was brief, simple, beautiful. Noah sat among the flower petals, occasionally glancing up at the grown-ups, curious why everyone looked so serious. And then, as John finished his vows, not just to Emily, but to the boy who brought them together. Noah wandered over, wrapped his arms around John's leg, and said, Daddy. The park went still. John bent down, picked up the boy, and with one arm around Noah and the other around Emily, whispered, I love you, son. Under that old oak tree, under a sky that bore witness, something broken had been made whole. John hadn't saved a single mother. She had saved him. From silence, from grief, from a hollow life of noise and nothing. And in place of loneliness, a new family had bloomed, not by blood, but by love. Not from planning, but from a question and a plate of mashed potatoes. They weren't perfect, but they were together. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. From a whisper in a luxury restaurant to a vow under open sky, this is what love can look like. Raw, imperfect, healing. If this story touched your heart, made you feel something, or reminded you of the quiet power of compassion, like, share, and subscribe to soul-stirring stories, where every tale is told to mend, move, and awaken the human spirit. Until next time.